Alrighty. Thank you all so much for joining November's edition of NAMIGOTalks. It is my pleasure to host Mark Hendelson to talk to us about all things Social Security, disability, and Medicare programs. Mark has been doing this for about 38 years, and he's got a lot of experience working with all sorts of Social Security administrations. I do just want to distinguish a little bit between the types of disability, Social Security benefits that he will be covering, and it's going to be the more general Social Security benefits. So we do encourage you to ask questions along the way. This is intended to be a very back and forth conversation so that you all can get the most out of this. Thank you to the group of folks who submitted questions ahead of time. That is going to help guide our conversation. So again, thank you so much for your contribution. And if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please put it in the chat. I will be keeping tabs on the chat, and I can ask Mark to speak on a specific topic. Because there are so many folks in the group, and because we've only got about an hour, I will ask that folks do please keep their questions relevant and general. And if you would like to follow up on more specific information, contact Mark. He has so much information, and he is so excited to share it with you all. I'm going to put his card in the, oh, that's not it. I'm going to put his card in the chat for you all to see and have that in just a moment. I can only do one thing at a time. So before I work on the business card, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Mark. Please take us away and guide us through your knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate this opportunity to be here with you guys tonight. Can everybody hear me okay? Am I talking loud enough? Sounds everything good on your end? Perfect. Thank you. As Megan had mentioned, I have worked 38 years with the Social Security Administration, a number of different offices. I retired earlier this year. My entire career was built around educating consumers. I saw myself as a social worker whose main responsibility was educating our clients about all of our disability programs, all of our Social Security programs, along with Medicare. I went out and did public presentations with civic organizations and companies, pre-COVID, a lot of outreach. So I've known for the last couple of years leading up to retirement what I wanted to continue doing, and that's working with seniors and the disabled in Central Florida and help them navigate through our very complex Social Security disability, Social Security programs, along with Medicare. I'm going to start by giving some basic information about the Social Security programs. There are two of them that Social Security offices handle. You have a Social Security disability program for those individuals who work and contribute through paying FICA taxes. They would qualify if they have enough work quarters paid in. They would qualify potentially for Social Security disability benefits. If you haven't worked long enough to be insured under the Social Security program, you could possibly qualify under the second program that Social Security handles, and that's SSI, or Supplemental Security Income. SSI is a program based on need. It's a program for the needy. Both Social Security disability, SSDI and SSI, they have the same medical requirements. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. They each have those specific technical requirements. Before Social Security will send a applicant's claim for a medical decision, a couple things have to happen. You're filing for Social Security disability benefits. We need to make sure that you are insured and that you've contributed long enough into the Social Security system to qualify. If you have, then your claim would be sent to our medical staff for them to develop information and make a decision. Regarding SSI, Supplemental Security Income, being a needs-based program, the technical requirement is, is your income and resources low enough to qualify for help under the assistance program, under SSI? If the answer is yes, claim gets forwarded to our DDS, Department of Disability Services, and they would make a medical decision after gathering all the medical information that's needed. So those are the two programs. My expertise focuses on Social Security. I know some about SSI. I've worked in it over the years, on and off. So we're not going to get too specific about SSI. We're going to talk in generalities about SSI. We can get a little more deeper into the weeds if we need to about the Social Security program. I'm going to throw some facts out to you guys, some basic facts about Social Security and SSI and how these programs work. When you file a claim for disability benefits, first thing they'll do in the office is they'll confirm you've got enough quarters paid in for Social Security. For SSI, they'll confirm that your income and resources are low enough to qualify under that needs-based program. If the answer is yes, the next step would be transferring your file to the state of Florida or whatever state you may live in. It goes here in Florida to either Orlando, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami. Those are where all the DDS offices are located. And Social Security nationwide, we contract with these DDS offices. That's where the nurses and the doctors review the claim that's been filed and write for medical records from the medical sources that are listed. They may come back to a claimant asking them to fill out a pain questionnaire or a work activity report. Or if they don't have enough medical sources to allow the state to make a medical decision, they'll send the individual at our cost for what we call a consultative examination, a CE. Okay. It's very helpful having relevant medical records of your own that are current. But if you don't, you've got a condition where you haven't gone for treatment recently, we will send you, if it's warranted, for a consultative examination that we will pay for, that Social Security will pay for. So initial claims go to DDS. It takes, we used to say 90 to 120 days to make a decision. It's taken 6 months or longer to make a medical decision since COVID, because it is really time-consuming and difficult getting medical records from the medical community on a timely basis. Okay, so it's a long, drawn-out process because of our need to capture all of the medical records for an individual and do any follow-ups directly with an individual. So usually a medical decision gets made within 6 months at the initial level. In the state of Florida, about 40%, 38 to 40% of initial claims are approved. So I hear this all the time, that Social Security denies all claims initially, that it's a rubber stamp process, and that could not be further from the truth. Okay, 38 to 40% of initial claims in the state of Florida are medically approved. If you are denied, you'll get a letter in the mail which will tell you why and the basis for the denial. Then the individual has a 60-day window to file what we call a request for reconsideration. With a request for reconsideration, you update your records telling us any new medical sources you've been to, and that claim goes to our medical staff again in DDS for them to update your folder, update your file with new and current information, and then they'll make a new decision. It goes to a different examiner who worked on the initial claim. So it's looked at independently from who made the first decision. So there's a system of checks and balances with this appeal process. So the request for reconsideration needs to be filed within 6 months, within 60 days. It takes about 90 to 120 days for a reconsideration decision to be made. Because we've already got a file, it's just a matter of updating an individual's records, going back to them if we need any additional clarification or additional information from them. Usually a consultative examination is not needed at that second stage since we've already got a folder with medical records. And then they'll make a decision. About 15, in the state of Florida, 15% approximately of reconsideration requests get approved. So initial determinations that were denials, 15% of them at the reconsideration level get overturned, get approved. The third level of appeal, if it's turned down at the second level, the reconsideration level, the third level of appeal is a hearing. That's where you go before an administrative law judge. Most of those are now being done via Zoom calls. There was some talk they were going to open up some hearings in person. I don't know if that's happened yet, but hearings take place at the third level, and there's a very big backlog at the hearing level. It could take up to a year to work through the whole process and get a determination made. Up to a year. Social Security does most everything very efficiently. I really am proud to have worked for that agency for the 38 years I did. 99.9% of what we did was accurate and was done timely. The one area that we're working on getting better at is the disability realm, the disability process. A lot of it is not our fault. A lot of it is just dealing with the medical community, which is often difficult to get information out quickly. So I get asked this question a lot. Do I need representation? And that was one of the questions that I saw sent to me before the call tonight. Do I need representation? I'm a very transparent person. Even when I worked with Social Security, I was very honest with our clients. And I'm going to tell you what I shared with them. If you are filing for disability benefits, you do not need representation at the initial and reconsideration level. Unless you're illiterate, you're overwhelmed with the forms, you don't need representation because representation does not increase your chances of getting an allowance. Social Security disability attorneys do not like me making that statement. Many of them, you go online, you can read some of their websites. Many of them lead their clients to the belief that they can help get a claim approved. The decision maker at DDS doesn't even know about representation. They're not influenced with representation. So Social Security does a really good job of holding the hands of our clients and making sure that they're putting their best foot forward through the initial and reconsideration stages. You don't need representation. Where I counsel my clients to consider representation is at the hearing level. If you hire the right attorney, and there are some really good ones and some that are not good at all in Central Florida, if you hire the right representation, they often can put the facts about your condition in a better light, a more favorable light for the administrative law judge, for the ALJ. So I always encourage my clients, speak to a large disability attorney firm, a medium one, and a small one, and find out who's going to be your best advocate. Some like the, speaking right to the attorney and speaking to a smaller firm where they can have constant contact with the attorney, and they just feel that type of arrangement is best for them. Some like the larger firms that are out there that have a slew of people handling the disability workload. You've just got to find your comfort level and make that decision as to who best is going to, be your advocate. They all charge the same. If it's not allowed, they get nothing. If it's not approved, they get zero. If it's approved, attorney reps get 25% up to $7,200 of an individual's retroactive benefits. If there are no retroactive benefits, they don't get anything. So they're only eligible for, in the fee agreement that an individual signs, 25% up to $7,200 of an individual's benefits. That's why many attorneys won't talk to you until that hearing level, because when you're dealing with a hearing, you're already in the system, and there's going to be larger retroactive benefits available. So many of them don't touch a case until the hearing, sometimes the reconsideration levels. Social Security will help an individual navigate through the system at the initial and reconsideration and hearing levels. To file for benefits, I tell my clients, if you are computer literate, file online. The reason I advise my clients to do that, when you're filing online, you can spend hours and hours filling out the form, doing a narrative, which I always recommend, and making sure you're putting your best submission, best application in play for Social Security to review and process. When you make an appointment to file for disability benefits, we have an hour to get an application done. And that is really pushing it to get that disability report completed. It's a 10-page form listing all your medical sources, medications, tests. There's a lot that goes in that form. So I love my clients to sit in the comfort of their home and take their time filling out that application. You're putting a better product in play for Social Security to process and DDS to develop in making a decision. One of the questions I saw submitted earlier is, what's relevant? What's really important? Well, the Social Security disability application probably takes less than 30 minutes to complete. The most important form is the medical disability report. So, like I said, it's a 10-page form. That's where you list all of your medical conditions. That's a really critical section on the form. Do not leave anything out, no matter how minor you think a condition is relating to your overall health, because many of these conditions combined together would result in an allowance. So that's where you get to disclose anything and everything regarding your health, both emotionally and physically. Emotionally and physically. So listing medical conditions is really critical. I had somebody write a couple of weeks ago I was working with, she listed 22 conditions. That's great. Some of them she didn't want to list, but we listed it. Better to list it and it not be relevant than not list it and us not know about it. Okay? Medical conditions. So be very complete regarding that. The next part of that form that's really, really important is a question that asks about your date of onset. Let's talk about onset and why that is important. Date of onset to Social Security means that is the point at which you're telling us you became 100% disabled and unable to work. This is a good time to talk about the definition of disability under the Social Security provisions of the law. Social Security to be eligible, also with SSI, to be eligible. We're not paying somebody based on a partial condition. You have to be found to be 100% disabled with a condition expected to last at least 12 months or result in death. Somebody who breaks their leg or is having a tough pregnancy, or because we get calls along those lines all the time. Unless your condition is expected to last at least 12 months and be 100% disabling or expected to result in death, this is a program that's not going to be available to you. Okay, so that's really, really critical to know. You got to be 100% disabled and unable to work, expected 12 months or result in death. It's not like VA that pays 20, 30, 40, 50% partial disability, service connected, non-service connected. You've got to be 100% disabled. So the onset date is really important because that's where you're going to tell us the date you felt you became 100% disabled, unable to work. Date of onset's important. If you're working despite your impairment and you're over what we call SGA, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, that's substantial gainful activity. If you're over that amount, no matter what your condition is, you're not eligible. I've had people with terminal conditions contact us for help. And I've said to them, when you stop or cut back under the SGA guidelines, then you can file for benefits. So the onset date is critical. That's when you're telling us you either stopped working or you felt your condition was 100% disabling and you couldn't work if you weren't working. That's the date that Social Security is going to use to develop information on you and to make a decision. If you say under the Social Security program you became disabled or you stopped working June 15th because of your medical issues, and if you get approved under Social Security, there is a 5-month waiting period where we don't pay benefits. So if you stopped working and you were approved with an onset date of June 15th, your waiting period would be 5 full months, July, August, September, October, November. Your start date for benefits would be December. So the onset date is critical. If you get approved, it's 5-month waiting period under the Social Security program. And that 6th month is when your checks start. SSI, if you file for both programs, we could pay you SSI initially because they don't have a waiting period. So you can get benefits for SSI, and then those benefits would end when your Social Security kicked in the month of December. So on that form, the onset date is very, very important.
We have a question from the chat.
Fire away.
What is the amount of monies you can make and still be eligible for SSDI?
So I talked about the term substantial gainful activity. In 2023, if you are making under $1,470, $1,470 in 2023, you're working part-time and you're making under that amount in gross wages and net self-employment, that's considered not SGA. If you're making over that amount of money, likely we will find you not eligible because you're performing substantial gainful activity, SGA. So work is very relevant in this process. Go ahead, Megan.
Can you say that number one more time?
$1,470, $1,470.
For the whole year or for
I'm sorry, my mistake. I should have qualified that. It's $1,470 a month.
Gotcha. Okay.
My apologies. It's $1,470 a month is your monthly SGA limitation. If you're working part-time earning less than that amount of money and you feel you're 100% disabled, you should file. We approve people, even if they're working, as long as the earnings are under the $1,470 amount a month. Okay. So the onset date is really critical to pay attention and put an accurate date down. The most important part of the form is the form that talks about medical records. Let's talk a little bit about what's important, what's relevant. If you became disabled recently, we're not concerned about medical issues that you had 10 or 15 years ago that are not relevant right now or not impacting you right now. It's your current medical condition. Now, if those prior conditions still are part of your challenges that are making or contributing to you not being able to work or work under the SGA level, then we want you to list those conditions. And we also want you to list all of the medical sources who have current records on you, relevant to your onset date. We're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to know about primary PCPs, primary care physicians from 15, 20 years ago. We're looking at current records based on your current onset date allegation. So when you're listing the doctors, you're listing doctors, clinics, hospitals, therapists. I lost the screen, Megan. Can you guys hear me? There you go, I'm back. Thank you. We want you to list medical sources. You're going to list their name, address, phone number. Really important, the date you first saw them and the date you last saw them. Also important, what are they treating you for? What conditions? You got 22 listed. We want to know what they're treating you for. And what is the treatment? Is it therapy? Are there medications involved? Is it tests? If there are medications and tests, we're going to want you to expand on that and tell us about the medications and tests. So listing the medical sources is really important. We're going to ask you to list hospitals and clinics. Hospitals, inpatient, outpatient, emergency room. Inpatient, date you were in, date you were admitted, date you were discharged. Emergency room, date you went to the emergency room. Outpatients, the date you were outpatients. So be very specific. So our medical staff, you're painting a picture for them as to where they can write and what medical sources have records on you. So medical sources is important. The other section that's important is the work history. We're not looking for your resume. I don't need to know every job you've had. They're looking over a 15-year period. We want you to list the type of work you've done over the last 15 years. Type of work. If you've been all your life a waiter or a waitress, and you worked in multiple restaurants or bars, you don't have to list each of those. Just put down what you've done in the period you did that type of work. The reason work is important is when they make a medical decision, your medical records are not the only factor that's important. They're the most important, obviously. They're also going to look at your age, your education, which is also captured in that form, your age, your education, your work experience. I like to use the example of a construction worker who hurts his or her back. Well, they may not be able to go back and do the physical demands of construction work, but based on their age and education, there might be other types of work that they can do now or be retrained or retooled to do. So the medical staff will look at an individual's age, education, work experience, along with the medical records. Okay. So you're going to fill out the medical disability report, disability application. You're going to submit all that to Social Security. They'll review it. They'll come back to you to fill in any blanks. You'll also electronically sign the medical authorization form. Social Security cannot move forward without your permission to get your records. And that would be via a medical authorization form, which you'll electronically sign. You'll submit that to Social Security. Again, they review it in the local office based on your zip code, based on your jurisdiction. They'll review it. Usually it's reviewed within 48 to 72 hours, 2 to 3 days. They'll come back to you either via a phone. I always call to speed up the process if there were things that I needed clarification on. Sometimes they'll write a letter asking for additional information. And once we get everything complete, then we move it on to the medical staff, depending on where you live, the DDS that services your area. So the clock doesn't start ticking. It's not when you submit the claim. It's when it goes off to our medical staff in this area in Orlando, in Central Florida. Okay. Megan, why don't you throw some questions out to me?
Yeah, I've got another one. I want to back up just a little bit. I think you touched on this, but there's a question about, so Social Security just offered to do the SSDI appeal hearing over the phone, video, or in person. Do you have a method that you recommend?
So are they responding to a specific, did they say they've been offered those options? Is that what they're asking?
Yeah, I think the question is, do you have a recommendation of those three methods of communication? Do you find one more beneficial than the other? Similar to how you recommended folks fill out the application in the comfort of their home. I think it's similar.
Okay, let me expand on that a little bit.
Wrong, Shirley.
So you do have multiple options. Okay. You cannot, because this is another question, you cannot walk in to the Social Security office, wherever you may live, and say, I want to file for disability benefits. I want to see somebody today. They work on an appointment system. Okay. When I worked, I would be given a set of appointments each day: Social Security, retirement, widows, Medicare, spousal claims, disability claims to handle. So we all, doing the job that I had, we all have a full schedule of appointments that people have been waiting for us to call. We're not doing in-office appointments since COVID. Social Security's been open for about 1.5 years now, reopened April of last year. So there's no in-office appointments. Everything's being done over the phone. So an individual, once you schedule an appointment, with whatever type of claim you're looking to file, somebody will call you. The best way of filing for disability benefits, as I stated earlier, is filing online. If you're not comfortable doing that, you certainly can call. And I'm going to give you the 800 number, which is 1-800-772-1213. 1-800-772-1213. Call them about 8 o'clock in the morning before the West Coast people kick in. They're open from 8 till 7, 8 a.m. till 7 p.m. Call them early. That'll minimize your wait time. And if you're looking to schedule an appointment, you're going to say, I am disabled. I want to file for Social Security disability and also talk to somebody about SSI. And they'll schedule that appointment for an individual to call you. And at the time of the appointment, that's when you need to have all of your medical information available to give to the representative. You'll need to have marital information available if you're married. If you have minor children, we'll need to know about your minor children. So you can do a telephone appointment. You can do it online. There's no in-office appointments. When I talked about video earlier, hearings are being done via video. That may change in the near future, but the initial and reconsideration level, there's no video option for individuals. We would call. When we have our appointments, we call. So it's make an appointment or file online. Yes, Megan.
Perfect. Yeah, no, thank you for that. We have another question. So the question is, do you have any tips for those applying for SSI, SSDI due to a mental health disability? Many of the questions on the application seem to be geared to a physical disability, i.e., can you dress yourself? Can you cook your own food?
That opens the door for what I was going to talk about next. One of the reasons that I like individuals to do this from the comfort of their home, you can have family members help you, but you do a really good job, a complete job at the initial claim, is I always recommend when somebody's dealing with emotional issues is to write a narrative and attach that to your submission. You're getting the chance to talk to your decision maker. So that's your opportunity. You've completed your form. Do a narrative. Do a full page where you're telling them from morning to night how your emotional issues, how your emotional challenges impact your ability to function. That's what's key. How do your emotional issues impact your ability to function, either at work, with interpersonal relationships, doing housework, whatever it might be? This is not the time to not put something down because it's embarrassing. Okay. This is where you need full disclosure, 100% transparency. It's not easy. It's painful, but this is what you need to do to give yourself a better chance of being approved. Many individuals with emotional issues, many people with emotional issues are very guarded. We try to make it a very comfortable conversation. Some of us do a better job than others, honestly, at work. But you need to be fully transparent and let us know in your own words how your emotional challenges impact your ability to function, both at work and both at home. And if that means you have to stay in your PJs all day under the blankets, that's what you need to say and tell us. You're talking to your decision maker. So write a narrative. With physical ailments, it's in black and white most of the time. With emotional issues, it's not. So people with mental health challenges who are filing for benefits, that's the best way for them to help themselves, is to get that statement written. And maybe from your therapist or your primary care doctor, have them include a narrative, a statement. We're going to get medical records, but have them personalize a statement as to their observations as to how your emotional issues impact your ability to function. And just so you understand clearly, your PCP or your counselor, or your therapist, mental health counselor, social worker, them writing that you're 100% disabled doesn't move the needle at all. Okay. It helps hearing it, but I've gotten many people over the years saying, I should get approved. My doctor said I shouldn't work because I'm 100% disabled. You've got to meet the definition set down by Congress regarding being 100% disabled. And it's a very strict definition. But getting medical sources that know about your condition, your emotional issues, that is helpful if they would write a statement and you include one as to how it affects your day-to-day life.
Mark, forgive me. Did you say explicitly what that strict definition of being 100% disabled was?
Yeah. So being 100% disabled simply means that you have a medical condition expected to last at least 12 months. We're not paying short-term or partial. Expect to last at least 12 months or result in death. Okay?
Yes.
There are guidelines that DDS has, which they follow based on an individual's conditions. Okay? Certain criteria. I'm not well versed in it because I don't work on that side of the fence, to be honest with you. but they have strict guidelines based on different, they call them listing codes, okay, set down by Congress, set down by the Social Security Act, that they use when reviewing medical records to see if somebody meets that listing code.
Okay. And then kind of just a pivot from that, how many quarters do you have to work for SSDI? And are there different maximums of payment for SSI versus SSDI?
Okay, great question. So SSI payments are based on, if you qualify based on having low income and low resources, you get I'm just going to round it off because the numbers change. It's about $800 a month, and somebody in your audience may know the exact amount. So it's a lower amount, but it's dictated by the state. Okay. Social Security disability benefits pays you based on your age when you were determined to be 100% disabled, and how much you paid in over the years of work. Those people aged 31 or older, you need to have worked 5 of the last 10 years. It's 2040, the term we use at Social Security. They don't meet 2040 means they don't have enough quarters. If you're younger, in your 20s, it's a tiered level of how many quarters you need. It's on our website, but 2040 for people in 30s, 40s, and older is what you need to meet. That's 5 of the last 10 years of contributions to Social Security paying in. If you don't meet that threshold, no matter how serious a medical condition or conditions you have, you're not eligible. It's a contributory system. It's an insurance program like paying premiums, right? You've got to pay your premiums to have auto coverage and homeowners coverage. This is a giant insurance program. To have insurance coverage for disability, you've got to work and pay into the system through FICA taxes. If you're working under the table, you're cutting grass and getting paid in cash, or you're working in a bar and getting less than minimum wage and not declaring your tips, that's going to hurt you because you're not paying FICA taxes on those earnings. You're not going to have those quarters, and that might impact your insured status determination. I will throw a couple statistics out to you as far as benefits. Okay. The average Social Security benefit paid out is $1,358. $1,358. Most people getting disability when they file have worked 20 years or longer under the system. Let's talk about the benefits, because it's important to understand that 1358 is just an average number. I've seen people receive $3,000 a month in a disability check if they're higher wage earners, if they contributed more money over their lifetime. We not only pay disability workers, we also pay children and possibly spouses. If you're found to be disabled and you have children of your own or stepchildren that you've been contributing to their living expenses, to their support, your children or stepchildren or adopted children would be eligible for payment on your record. If you're married, your spouse, if they have a child of yours under the age of 16 in their care, would also be eligible for benefits. So we pay children up until the age of 18, children who are in high school, so they're student benefits, 18 to 19, you have to be a full-time student. And there's a disability program for disabled children who became 100% disabled before the age of 22. So if you get approved for disability, one of the questions we're going to ask, when you file for disability, we're going to ask you about children. You're going to list any children you might have, including disabled children, including high school full-time students. And if you get approved, we'll know to go back and contact you for claims for your children. They'll also be eligible for benefits. And if you're married, your spouse will be eligible if you have a child under the age of 16 in your care. Another disability program we have, many people aren't aware of, is we pay disabled widows or widowers. If you're married and your husband or wife passes away and they've contributed the required number of quarters to Social Security, if you're age 50 or older, you could qualify for disabled widows or disabled widowers benefits based on your deceased spouse's record. And the process is very similar to a disability claim. You have initial stage, reconsideration, and hearing, and you've got the same forms, same time frames that you have to go through as you do when you're filing an initial disability claim based on your own work record. So we pay disabled widows and disabled widowers. We pay disabled workers. And I mentioned briefly, we also pay disabled children who become disabled before the age of 22. So if you're 62 years old and you're filing for disability benefits, and you're filing for retirement benefits, you're retired, never were disabled, you're going to get a Social Security retirement check on the application. We're going to ask again, just like we do on the disability application, about children. And if you say, yes, I have a disabled child who's been disabled since birth with autism or Down syndrome, we're going to develop their eligibility on your record. They likely will be getting some type of SSI payment, but we would have to make a new medical determination, likely an allowance. If they're getting benefits under the SSI program based on their medical issues, they likely will be approved on your record and determined to be disabled before the age of 22. So what would happen is their small SSI check of $700-800 a month, if you've worked and you've paid in a good bit over your lifetime, they may get double what they were getting in the way of SSI now on your work record. Another point I want to mention. So when we talk about the disability realm, it's more than this disabled worker. We have disabled children, we have disabled widows and disabled widowers that all fall under the scope of these disability programs. One other point I want to make sure we hit on that we're clear. Medicare for many disabled people is a godsend and is needed. But unfortunately, you've got to be disabled getting benefits. You've got to get 24 months of Social Security benefits before Medicare kicks in, and it's automatic enrollment. So if you file for disability benefits initially and you found eligible, after you get 24 checks, you signed up automatically for Medicare. If you get approved at the hearing level and Social Security is going to retroactively pay you benefits, and I've seen them go back 2, 3, 4 years, if we go back at least 24 months, you'll get Medicare benefits right away because of those retroactive entitlement months. So Medicare is a big part of this program for the disabled.
We've got a question on that, on coverage. Would that apply for grandparents that adopt their disabled grandchildren?
So grandparents, let me answer this 2 ways. So grandparents who have custody of their grandchildren, there's no eligibility at all. Okay, we don't pay grandchildren on grandparents' record. Your scenario, though, happens where grandparents adopt their grandchildren. They're no longer their grandchildren. They're legally their adopted child. So once that adoption takes place, they can get benefits or possibly disability benefits if they've been disabled before the age of 22.
Wonderful, thank you. And then another question that we have, okay, I want to make sure I get this correct. So it says, if a representative can't get through the application with someone in the hour when they have their appointment, will the representative do a follow-up appointment or it gets passed to somebody else? Can you speak on that process?
So this is me being 100% transparent. We will get the interview done within an hour. Does that mean we're putting a good product out there for this claimant? No. What we don't have the time or bandwidth to do is call people back to finish applications. We just don't. That's the reality. That's the reality of our workloads. That's why file online, find somebody to help you file online. I was very efficient in getting all the information that I knew would be relevant. I got down on paper for my people. Does that mean what I did would be better than what they would put forth if they did this in the comfort of their home over a couple of days? Probably not. Some attorney reps, if you contact them at the initial level, they will take the case and fill out the forms for you. I can't promise they do a great job. If somebody contacts an attorney rep and they said, yes, we'll take your case, this is at the initial level, and they have you sign a fee agreement, and the next thing they say is, okay, let's call Social Security and make an appointment, you rip up that fee agreement and you run out of their office. Because their responsibility, if they're taking that fee agreement, is that as your advocate is to file that claim. There are some attorneys that their main goal is to get that fee agreement signed and get an appointment made for an individual. And that means that person has to wait 30 to 40 or 30 to 60 days for an appointment. That's the other thing I didn't touch base on. When you call for an appointment, you might have to wait up to 60 days to get that appointment. That's 60 days of lost time. You fill out the application, you submit it, you're in the process, you're in the system. You make an appointment, you're not going to speak to somebody at least 30 days, probably between 30 to 60 days. That's lost time for somebody who's disabled and needs help sooner rather than later. And shame on any attorney who if I speak to a client and I see they've got an attorney who's scheduled an appointment, I have this conversation with my individual and I make sure to let them know your attorney should have done this for you 60 days ago or 30 days ago. We're doing everything. They're adding no value to your claim at all. So I really try to encourage people to not have a rep, and I probably am more aggressive. I know I'm more aggressive about it than I should be, but I sat right out of my boss's office and she cheered every time she heard a conversation like that. Because for us, it's all about the claimants and protecting their rights. And if they hired somebody who didn't do what they should have been doing, we're going to advocate for them. I know we're getting short on time, so you fire away.
We've got one last question, and I do just want to let everyone know we're going to try to close at 7:30 to respect everybody's time. I did put Mark's card in the chat, so please feel free to collect his information. The last question that we're going to be able to touch on. So the question is, if an applicant who hasn't paid into the system applies for need-based disability, would living with a parent disqualify the applicant from receiving disability? Also, would it disqualify an applicant for disability if a parent helps their child with rent and utilities?
That I understand the question. So basically, SSI being a needs-based program, if you're getting assistance from others, parents or others, it might impact you. That's a question you need to ask your SSI expert when you have your appointment. Okay, we're going to look at an individual's income and resources, and it depends on the living situation. Depends on the individual's age. There are a lot of factors involved, so I can't make a blanket yes or no statement to that, Megan. Okay, SSI is really tricky because of income and resources. So I'm going to defer to the claims rep who they'll speak to, who specializes in SSI. And let me make another statement here. There's no penalty for somebody to file for disability. People are hesitant because now they've got a black mark on their record. Uncle Sam knows they filed for disability and it's going to hurt them later. No, it doesn't work that way. Feel you're disabled, the only way you can get help is by filing and let us make a decision. The answer is always no if you don't file. Okay. So my availability, I have my business card. What I don't do, what I refuse to do in good conscience, I'm not going to represent anybody. I wouldn't sleep at night taking money from the disabled, because I can help. I've had some people hire me to navigate through the system like I've done with people tonight. I am available for hire, or ask a question, or do presentations if you're with other groups. I love doing these seminars. There's a need and a niche for what I'm offering. Disability, honestly, is a small part of your Social Security Pro, my company, but it's growing because there's a need, and I really understand the process. So I'm growing organically. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't have a website. I'm not advertising. I'm just doing this by word of mouth, and it's been very successful since I started the company earlier in the year. So I'm available. I'd love to talk to people. I'd love to give presentations in person or webinars. If somebody wants to hire me, for a detailed conversation, I'm available for that also.